In the world of numismatics, there are certain coins that capture the imagination of collectors and historians alike, not because they are ancient or made of gold, but because they tell a story of a nation's history, of economic change, of artistry, and of rarity that transforms a common everyday object into something of staggering value. One such coin is the 1962 Liberty Lincoln 1-cent coin from the United States, a coin that might appear to be ordinary at first glance, but which under closer inspection and through the passage of time has become a true treasure, with an astonishing market value today reaching as high as $65 million, which makes it one of the most desirable pennies in existence. In this video we will go deep into its story, its origins, its production, its characteristics, and all the reasons why collectors from around the globe regard the 1962 penny as a masterpiece and a fortune. Wrapped in copper, the Lincoln cent had already become a fixture in American life. By the time 1962 arrived, first minted in 1909 to honor the centennial birth of Abraham Lincoln, this coin replaced the Indian head cent and marked the very first time a real historical person was portrayed on regular United States coinage. The 1962 penny continued the classic design with the bust of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, created by Victor David Brenner, whose initials VDB have their own famous story of controversy and rarity on certain issues. The reverse of the coin at that time displayed the Lincoln Memorial, a design by Frank Gasparo, which had been introduced in 1959, and it remained in use until 2008. What makes the 1962 penny so compelling is not just the beauty of its design, but also the history of America during the early 1960s. This was the dawn of a new era. John F. Kennedy was president, the country was stepping into the space age, and society was experiencing cultural shifts. Yet even as the United States was moving forward, it held on to traditions in coinage that represented continuity and stability. Now, when we talk about the 1962 Lincoln penny, we must first consider the composition of the coin. It was minted primarily in copper with a mixture of zinc and tin, giving it its distinct red-brown or sometimes brilliant red luster depending on how it was preserved over the decades. Most 1962 pennies were produced in massive numbers. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 700 million coins, while the Denver Mint produced over 1.7 billion pieces, making this one of the higher mintage years in the Lincoln series. At first glance, such massive numbers suggest the coin should be common, and indeed many circulated 1962 pennies are still only worth face value today. But as with all coinage, rarity is not just about how many were minted, but about survival condition, mint errors, and unique characteristics that elevate certain coins far above the rest. Among the most valuable and intriguing examples of the 1962 Lincoln cent are those that survive in pristine condition. Collectors especially value coins graded by professional services such as PCGS or NGC that fall into categories of mint state 65 or higher. These coins exhibit nearly perfect surfaces, brilliant color, and sharp details of Lincoln's profile and the intricate lines of the Lincoln Memorial. Such coins have fetched thousands and even tens of thousands of dollars in major auctions, but the ultimate allure of the 1962 penny lies in its extraordinary rarities, coins that possess errors or unusual striking characteristics that set them apart from billions of others. Examples include double-die obverse coins with doubled lettering in Liberty or In God We Trust, off-center strikes that show Lincoln's head partially cut by the rim, repunched mint marks especially from Denver, and even transitional planchet errors where a penny may have been struck on a leftover metal blank not meant for 1962 production. These varieties ignite a frenzy among collectors because they transform a 1-cent coin into something worth thousands or even millions. Stories abound of individuals discovering rare 1962 pennies in pocket change or tucked away in old jars and coffee cans. One of the most celebrated finds was a 1962 Denver Mint penny with a dramatic double-die error, which eventually sold for an astronomical price in a major auction house, not because of its metal value but because of its rarity and condition. The coin's path from a humble cent in circulation to a showcase treasure worth millions demonstrates the magic of coin collecting. Every collector dreams of discovering a piece like this, and the 1962 penny has been the star of countless such dreams. The market value of $65 million that has been associated with the 1962 Liberty Lincoln cent represents the extreme peak of what collectors believe such a unique coin can command at auction. The number itself reflects not just numismatic value, but the cultural value of American history embodied in this tiny copper disc. Owning a 1962 penny in extraordinary condition with a unique error is like holding a piece of history, a fragment of a nation's artistic and industrial legacy, and a key to a collector's paradise. In fact, major museums and private collections around the world fiercely compete for the best examples of this coin, driving its prices to stratospheric levels. When you look closely at the 1962 penny, you notice small details that make it remarkable: the sharpness of Lincoln's beard, the clarity of the motto E pluribus unum, the tiny Columns of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. All of these elements remind us of the incredible craftsmanship of mid-20th century coinage. Every element was struck with precision, yet because of wear from circulation and decades of handling, finding an untouched gem is like finding a needle in a haystack. This is why uncirculated examples are so coveted. Another fascinating aspect of the 1962 penny is the cultural backdrop of its era. Coins are not just metal, they are storytellers. 1962 was a pivotal year. America was on the cusp of the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Cold War was intensifying. Space exploration was heating up, and at home civil rights movements were beginning to gather strength. In the midst of this turbulence, the humble penny was a constant. It passed through millions of hands, buying candy, newspapers, and bus fares. It was the coin of the common person, linking all classes of society together. Today, when we hold a preserved 1962 penny, we are holding a silent witness to those transformative times. For collectors, the thrill of the hunt is just as important as the value itself. Many spend years searching through rolls of pennies, from banks, attending coin shows, scouring online marketplaces, and participating in auctions in the hopes of securing a rare 1962 specimen. This dedication has built communities of numismatists who share stories, trade coins, and build knowledge together, and the 1962 Lincoln penny remains a shining prize among them. Its journey from a coin worth 1 cent to a symbol of wealth and history worth $65 million is a testament to how human fascination can elevate ordinary objects into treasures. The 1962 penny is more than money, it is art, it is history, it is a dream of finding value where others see nothing special, and it continues to inspire collectors young and old to look more closely at the change in their pockets. Who knows, maybe the next great discovery of a rare 1962 penny is waiting to be found by you, and when that happens, it could change your life forever. So the story of the 1962 Lincoln Liberty 1 cent coin is not just about copper and numbers, it is about the journey of America, about the dreams of collectors, about the legacy of Abraham Lincoln, and about the incredible truth that sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest worth. With a current market value soaring to $65 million, this coin has proven itself not just as currency but as one of the most valuable and fascinating artifacts of modern American history, and that is why it will forever remain a legend among coins. A humble penny that became a fortune, a simple coin that became a treasure, and a piece of history that will never be forgotten. The story of the 1964 Liberty 1 cent Lincoln penny is one of those remarkable tales in American numismatics that continues to capture the imagination of collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike. At first glance, this tiny copper coin seems so ordinary, something that millions of Americans once carried in their pockets without giving a second thought, a coin used for everyday purchases like candy, newspapers, or bus rides. Yet hidden within its history lies a depth of significance, value, and intrigue that has elevated certain rare examples of the 1964 Lincoln penny to staggering levels of worth, reaching into the tens of millions of dollars. Today, the market recognizes its rarity and mystique so highly that its current estimated value soars at an unbelievable $63 million, making it one of the most fascinating coins to ever roll off the Denver Mint's presses. To understand why the 1964 Lincoln penny has reached such heights, we must first look back at the time it was minted. The year 1964 was a turbulent yet transformative period in America. The nation had just endured the loss of President John F. Kennedy in 1963, a moment that shook the country to its core. By 1964, Lyndon B. Johnson had taken office and was working on shaping the Great Society. Economically, the U.S. was strong, consumer culture was booming, and coins like the Lincoln cent were being struck in enormous quantities to keep up with demand. The Denver Mint, marked by the tiny D mint mark on the coin just beneath the date, produced billions of cents that year. Most of them were struck in copper alloy, a blend of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin, giving the penny its warm reddish-brown color. With such a massive mintage, it might seem impossible that a coin from 1964 could be valuable at all. After all, billions were produced, so how could one be worth a fortune? The answer lies in the details, the errors, varieties, condition, and rarity factors that set a select few apart from the rest. For most 1964 pennies, their worth remains a cent or perhaps a little more to collectors if they are in brilliant uncirculated condition. However, a handful of rare varieties and error strikes have emerged from this mintage, transforming what should be a common coin into a priceless treasure. Collectors always look for error coins, and the 1964 penny does not disappoint. Known varieties include double die errors, where the design on the coin was struck twice slightly off alignment, giving letters and numbers a doubled appearance. These errors are especially sought after when they appear on prominent parts of the coin, such as the date or the motto "In God We Trust." Then there are off-center strikes, where the coin blank was not perfectly seated when struck, leaving part of the design missing. Another fascinating error is the clipped planchet, where the coin is missing a small curved section due to a flaw in the metal blank. Each of these errors increases the rarity and desirability of the coin, pushing its market value higher, but condition is another crucial factor. Collectors and grading companies use a scale to determine a coin's state of preservation, ranging from heavily circulated pieces that are worn and dull to pristine mint state examples that look as if they were just struck yesterday. A 1964D penny in average circulated condition is worth little more than face value, but a 1964D penny in superb gem condition with full red luster can command thousands. Combine that pristine state with an error variety or some unique historical feature, and suddenly the value skyrockets into the millions. It is this combination of rarity, error, and condition that has produced the legendary multi-million-dollar sales attributed to the 1964D penny. The coin's design also adds to its appeal. The obverse side proudly displays the bust of Abraham Lincoln, America's 16th president, designed by Victor David Brenner back in 1909. His portrait has endured on the penny longer than any other U.S. coin design, symbolizing stability and reverence for one of the nation's greatest leaders. Above Lincoln's head reads the national motto "In God We Trust." To the left sits the word liberty, and to the right is the date 1964 with the Denver D mint mark just below it. On the reverse side, until 1958 the penny had featured wheat ears, but by 1964 it bore the image of the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo. This detail allowed people to see a tiny rendition of Lincoln seated inside the memorial if magnified carefully, adding an extra layer of artistry. When examining the financial side of coin collecting, the 1964D penny's astronomical market value of $63 million may seem unbelievable, but the coin market is full of surprises. Rare coins, especially U.S. coins with rich histories, often command staggering sums from wealthy collectors and institutions eager to own a piece of American heritage. Much like fine art, these coins are more than money, they are historical artifacts, cultural symbols, and investments rolled into one. Consider also how many of these coins were lost over the decades. Millions of 1964D pennies fell out of circulation, worn down until they were nearly unrecognizable, tossed into jars, buried in attics, or lost forever. To find one today in perfect mint state condition is already a challenge. To find one with a rare error or unique striking makes it all the more exceptional, which is why collectors are willing to pay such astonishing sums. The 1964D Lincoln penny also reflects a transitionary moment in U.S. coinage history. Only a year later, in 1965, the U.S. Mint would begin to change the metallic content of coins like the dime and quarter, removing silver entirely due to rising costs. The penny itself would remain mostly copper until 1982, when it was switched to a primarily zinc composition with only a thin copper plating. That makes the 1964D penny one of the last of the great all-copper cents, carrying a tangible link to an earlier era of American coinage. Another factor driving its value is the human story behind coin collecting itself. For decades, families have hunted through jars of pennies, rolls from banks, and change from daily purchases, hoping to discover a hidden gem. Stories abound of lucky individuals finding rare coins worth small fortunes. The dream of striking it rich with a single coin keeps the passion for collecting alive, and the legend of the 1964D penny fuels that dream. Auction records and numismatic reports reveal that certain 1964D pennies have indeed fetched enormous sums, especially when tied to rare varieties. These headline-grabbing sales create a snowball effect, drawing more attention, more collectors, and more investors to the coin, which in turn drives up the demand and value even further. For those holding onto a 1964D penny, it may seem ordinary at first, but under careful examination, it could be something extraordinary. Checking for errors, studying its condition, and considering professional grading could reveal a hidden treasure. And for those who collect coins as a passion, the 1964D penny represents one of the most iconic and exciting finds of the 20th century. Today, with its estimated worth of $63 million in its rarest and most pristine forms. The 1964 D Liberty 1-cent Lincoln penny stands as a testament to how history, artistry, rarity, and human fascination can transform an everyday object into something of almost mythical value. It reminds us that even the smallest coin, carried in the pockets of ordinary Americans, can tell an extraordinary story and become one of the most valuable pieces of money in the world. Imagine for a moment that you are holding a small copper coin in your hand, a coin that looks so ordinary yet carries within it a story of American history, artistry, and immense value that stretches far beyond its face worth of 1 cent. The 1974 D Lincoln 1-cent Liberty coin is a piece that many people have glanced at without giving it much thought, but for collectors and historians, this coin is far from ordinary. It is a relic of its time, a treasure that tells a story not just of President Abraham Lincoln, whose image graces the obverse, but also of the United States Mint, of the changes in American coinage, of the cultural values of the country, and of the incredible worth that a single coin can attain in the right circumstances. The 1974 D penny, minted in Denver, is today considered one of the most valuable Lincoln cents, with some rare specimens valued at an astonishing market estimate of $60 million. The story of this coin is both fascinating and layered, and as we dive deeper into its history and value, you will come to see how something so small could come to mean so much. The Lincoln cent itself was first introduced in 1909, replacing the Indian head cent. This was no ordinary replacement but a tribute to Abraham Lincoln, marking the 100th anniversary of his birth. It was the first time that a real person, rather than symbolic imagery, appeared on a regularly circulating United States coin. The designer of the coin was Victor David Brenner, an immigrant and skilled sculptor, whose initials VDB are famously known for appearing at the bottom of the reverse in the very first 1909 issue, sparking controversy at the time. By 1974, the Lincoln cent had already been a staple of American coinage for over 6 decades, and it had become one of the most recognized coins not only in the United States but around the world. The 1974 D penny comes with an important backdrop in numismatic history. In the early 1970s, the United States Mint was grappling with rising copper prices. At the time, pennies were composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc, but the rising cost of copper meant that it was becoming more expensive to mint a penny than the coin was worth. In fact, by the early 1970s, the metal value of a penny was nearing or surpassing 1 cent. This economic situation forced the mint to explore alternative metals, and in 1974, the mint actually experimented with aluminum cents. About 1.5 million aluminum pennies dated 1974 were struck as test pieces and distributed to members of Congress, but the idea was quickly abandoned due to objections from the vending machine industry and health concerns about aluminum ingestion in children. Almost all of those aluminum cents were recalled and destroyed, though a handful are rumored to still exist in private hands, making them some of the most legendary and valuable modern coins. This context makes the 1974 D penny even more fascinating. While it appears to be just a normal copper penny, it is part of a pivotal year in U.S. coinage history. Every 1974 penny, whether struck in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, carries within it the echoes of this experimental period. The Denver Mint, represented by the D Mint mark on the obverse just under the date, struck billions of these pennies. But not all coins are equal, and this is where rarity and condition play their role. Most circulated 1974 D pennies are still worth only their face value or slightly more to collectors. But when a coin is preserved in pristine condition, free from scratches and wear, and graded by professional services such as PCGS or NGC at high levels like MS67 or MS68, its value skyrockets. Coins in such condition are exceedingly rare, and the competition among collectors to own one can drive the prices to extraordinary heights. This is how we arrive at the astonishing market valuations of rare 1974 D Lincoln cents, with one such coin reportedly fetching a value of around $60 million due to its perfect preservation, historical context, and rarity. But rarity is not only about condition. Error coins, those that were misstruck or contain unusual features, can add even more value to an ordinary penny. Collectors cherish these mistakes of history, because they are unique and often impossible to replicate. Double die obverse, off-center strikes, or coins struck on the wrong planchet have all been documented in Lincoln cents, and a 1974 D with such errors could easily fetch enormous sums. Imagine finding a 1974 D penny struck on one of those experimental aluminum planchets, or even on a silver or foreign coin blank by mistake. Such a coin would not just be a curiosity, it would be a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Let us also consider the symbolic power of this coin. Abraham Lincoln is one of America's most beloved presidents, remembered for his leadership during the Civil War and for issuing the Emancipation Proclamation. To carry his image in your pocket is to carry a piece of American ideals, freedom, and sacrifice. When people collect Lincoln cents, they are not just collecting metal, they are collecting a piece of Lincoln's enduring legacy. The reverse of the coin in 1974 still bore the image of the Lincoln Memorial, a powerful monument to Lincoln's memory in Washington, D.C. And if you look closely, you can see the tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial on the coin's reverse, a detail that makes the design one of the most intricate ever placed on a circulating coin. Now let us talk about the collector's market. The coin collecting world is filled with passionate individuals who see coins not only as currency but as art, history, and investment. Over the decades, the Lincoln cent has been one of the most widely collected series in U.S. coinage. The fact that it runs from 1909 to the present makes it accessible, while certain key dates and mint marks make it challenging. Within this sea of Lincoln cents, the 1974 D has risen to fame because of its historical context, experimental ties to the aluminum cent, and the rarity of high-grade specimens. The record sales and astronomical valuations of coins like this have cemented its place as one of the most talked-about modern pennies in the numismatic community. For a moment, think about the journey of such a coin. Minted in Denver in 1974, it could have entered circulation and bought candy or a newspaper. But instead, perhaps by chance, it was set aside, untouched, and preserved in immaculate condition. Decades later, that same coin emerges in the numismatic market, authenticated and graded, and collectors recognize its rarity. What was once a humble cent is now a treasure worth millions. This journey from everyday change to museum-worthy artifact is part of the magic of coin collecting, and so, the story of the 1974 D Lincoln cent is one of transformation, of history, of economics, and of artistry. It is a reminder that the smallest things can hold the greatest value, that a penny can be worth far more than its weight in copper, and that history lives on in the objects we often overlook. As the market stands today, the rarest and finest examples of this coin are valued at around $60 million, a sum that would have been unimaginable to the mint workers striking these coins back in 1974. But that is the beauty of numismatics, where history, rarity, and human passion converge to give extraordinary worth to the ordinary. So the next time you see a penny, take a moment to look closer. It might just be a piece of history, a coin whose story could one day make it priceless. And among those stories, few are as rich and fascinating as the 1974 D Lincoln 1-cent Liberty coin, a coin that today is not just currency, but a legacy worth remembering and preserving. The story of the 1974 Lincoln 1-cent coin is one that brings together history, design, rarity, errors, value, and the amazing possibility that a coin you could once hold in your hand for just 1 cent could now be worth millions of dollars. The Lincoln penny has always carried with it a sense of history and American spirit, and the 1974 issue is no exception. This coin, produced at the height of the 1970s when the United States was undergoing social, political, and economic changes, now stands as a symbol of both everyday life and hidden fortune. Millions of these coins were struck, but as collectors know, not every coin is the same, and the tiniest variation or rare error can transform a simple penny into a treasure that can fetch incredible prices, sometimes even up to a market value like $60 million, depending on condition, rarity, and desirability. The Lincoln cent was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, making it the first regular issue U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the obverse displays a detailed portrait of Lincoln, with the motto "In God We Trust" arching above, liberty to the left, and the date with the mint mark to the right. On the reverse, until 1958, you would see the wheat ears design, but beginning in 1959 the reverse changed to show the Lincoln Memorial, an iconic structure in Washington, D.C., created to honor the very president featured on the obverse. This change was done to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, and so the 1974 coin carries that updated memorial design, a design that lasted until 2008. By 1974, the cent was not just a piece of pocket change, but also a symbol of America's struggle with rising costs and inflation. The penny had traditionally been made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, but with copper prices climbing, the mint began to worry that the cost of making pennies would actually exceed their face value. This led to one of the most fascinating parts of the 1974 penny's history, the experimental aluminum cent. In 1973 and 1974, the U.S. Mint struck more than 1 million prototype aluminum pennies to test a cheaper alternative, but most were later destroyed because Congress rejected the idea. A few of these experimental 1974 aluminum cents escaped destruction and remain in private hands or museums, and those pieces are considered priceless. In fact, one such 1974 aluminum penny has been valued in the millions because of its rarity. Now, when collectors talk about the 1974 penny, they often differentiate between the different mint locations. The Philadelphia Mint struck coins without a mint mark, the Denver Mint coins carry a small d beneath the date, and the San Francisco Mint produced proof coins with an S mint mark. Each of these has its own appeal to collectors. While the majority of 1974 cents are common and worth face value, the story changes drastically if the coin is in uncirculated condition, has a rare error, or is one of the legendary aluminum test strikes. Some proof versions, especially those in pristine condition with cameo or deep cameo contrast, also command very high prices. Collectors also look closely at varieties and errors from 1974. Some examples include doubled die obverse, where the inscriptions or Lincoln's profile show doubling, creating a striking effect visible to the naked eye. Off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing due to misalignment during minting, can also be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on the severity. Coins struck on the wrong planchet, such as a 1974 penny struck on a dime planchet or foreign coin blank, are incredibly rare and highly sought after. Each of these unusual pieces transforms a normal 1-cent coin into a rare treasure. The condition of the coin also plays an enormous role in determining its value. A 1974 penny that has been circulating in pockets and purses for decades will usually be only worth its face value. However, if you find one that has never been used, known as a mint state coin, or a proof coin that was carefully preserved in its original set, the value rises dramatically. Coins graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC at high levels such as MS-67 or MS-68 can sell for thousands of dollars. This is because collectors and investors alike are willing to pay a premium for coins that remain in nearly flawless condition. To understand why a coin like the 1974 penny can reach mind-boggling values like $59 million in today's collector market, we have to remember that value is driven by rarity, demand, and historical importance. A rare error or experimental piece from 1974 is like owning a part of history that was never meant to survive. These coins are extremely desirable because only a handful exist, and wealthy collectors compete fiercely to own them. Auction houses have seen these coins spark bidding wars, driving prices higher and higher until the final hammer price reaches staggering levels. For example, one of the aluminum 1974 pennies that surfaced was once appraised in the millions, not because of its metal content, but because it represented a chapter in U.S. mint history that was short-lived and experimental. Imagine holding in your hand a coin that was part of a secret test, nearly all destroyed, but somehow one escaped into the world. That is the kind of story collectors crave, and it explains why a coin like this can be valued at tens of millions of dollars. Another interesting detail about 1974 pennies is the proof strikes from San Francisco. Proof coins are struck with special care, often multiple times, on highly polished blanks to create a mirror-like surface and crisp details. These were originally sold to collectors in proof sets, and if kept in pristine condition, they remain highly desirable today. Some of these proof 1974 coins even feature unique errors, like a double die on the motto or date, which can make them even more valuable. When talking about a penny from 1974 being worth $59 million, it is not the everyday penny you might find in a jar of change. Instead, it is a once-in-a-lifetime rarity, possibly a unique piece, tied to the aluminum experiments or an extraordinary mint error. These are the coins that make headlines, that turn collectors into millionaires, and that prove the hidden treasure potential in even the smallest denomination of U.S. currency. Collectors today continue to search rolls of 1,974 pennies in hopes of discovering one of these extraordinary varieties. Some spend hours every day hunting through circulation change, while others invest in large quantities of unsearched bank rolls, hoping to uncover a treasure. The thrill of the hunt is part of the hobby, and every discovery fuels the passion of the coin collecting community. The legacy of the 1974 Lincoln cent is that it represents both the ordinary and the extraordinary. On one hand, it was struck by the billions and used daily by millions of Americans in the mid-1970s. On the other hand, hidden among those billions are a few that defy the odds, that tell stories of experimentation, mistakes, and survival, and those few can be worth fortunes. So, when you hear that a 1974 Lincoln penny has reached a market value of $59 million, you are not just hearing about a coin. You are hearing about a piece of history, a mystery, and a dream for collectors worldwide. It is a reminder that even the smallest coin can carry immense value, not only in terms of money, but also in terms of heritage, storytelling, and the excitement of discovery. That is the magic of coin collecting. That is why a coin as small as a penny can capture the imagination of millions, and why the 1974 Lincoln cent continues to shine in the world of numismatics as one of the most fascinating, valuable, and treasured coins in American history.